Hello and welcome to the Music Survival Guide, the independent musician's guide on how to survive in the music industry. My name is Phil, a mixing engineer. Hope you're doing wonderfully well out there. I've got to say, it's my great joy to say there seems to be an uptick in listeners. There seems to be more of you out there listening to me than before, which is really wonderful. I don't know how that's happened, but I'm very, very grateful for it. At the end of my episode, I tend to say something like, if you enjoyed it, please share it with friends and bandmates and have a chat about what's been said and things like that. But also write a review if you can wherever you listen to the podcast. If you could do that for me, that would be really, really wonderful. I would love it if more people can discover what's happening here, and that can only really happen when reviews are forthcoming because the algorithm likes it. Anyway, I'm going to not talk about that anymore. This week on the podcast, I have got a great conversation with Chris and Jared of Keep This Up. We chat about all sorts of things like challenges, booking gigs after they changed their sound, how that was difficult, but they kind of embraced it, when writing music, working out which songs to keep or which to chuck, things like that. And finally, of course, shenanigans around pubs closing before they could even play, which I just could not believe. And I'm going to stop talking and say on with the interview. Today I am joined by Jared and Chris of Keep This Up. How are you both?
Good, yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, living the dream.
Yeah. Good times, good times. So my first question is, as always, is from an online random question generator. And my first question for you both is, what is one of your favourite comfort foods?
Pizza, straight up. That's no hesitation for me.
Probably cereal or something like that. Something that's easy.
Cereal?
Don't need to think about it a lot. Whatever's there. It's something that's that or toast, because it's, again, super simple.
I've discovered the joy of toast since becoming a dad. It's it's a wonderful thing.
It's a go-to, has to be.
But I am a fan of pizza, I have to say. That would be my choice. Any particular pizza in mind, or just whatever's around?
I think I'll eat most pizza as long as it doesn't have pineapple on it.
Yes.
No.
Absolutely.
No.
Pineapple is wrong.
Thank you.
Hang on. Come on, Jared. You can't. No, pineapple is wrong on pizza.
A pineapple goes fantastically on pizza. It
does not.
Really, really well.
It does not.
I'll die on that hill. I'm quite happy.
I will die on that hill as well.
The band's about to end on a podcast.
That's a completely unacceptable opinion about pizza. This is my podcast.
You're outvoted, mate.
Fine, I'll let you two crack on.
Well, we'll see how this goes, I guess. So my first, I guess, kind of serious question for you both is, how did you both get into music in the first place? How did you find yourselves where you are?
For me, I think I blame my dad mostly. He, at a young age, got me into bands like Iron Maiden, Motley Crue, just anything along that sort of lines. Def Leppard, yeah, all the good stuff. Green Day. I remember American Idiot coming out, and obviously albums like that. And just from a young age, got very heavily into music, and just sort of drove that passion all through life. And I kind of got carried away with myself now at this point, and now I'm in a band, and we just, yeah, it's wild to think, but yeah, I think it's kind of just gone a bit wild for me. So how about you, Jared?
Similar in terms of getting into music from a young age, probably a difference in terms of bands. So I think for me, it was more kind of the new metal scene. So it was like Papa Roach, Slipknot, Limp Bizkit, those kinds of bands. Basically whatever was on like Kerrang at the time, which was that kind of stuff. And then I think secondary school kicked in. It was like, right, I want to learn an instrument. So it was drums to begin with, then guitar was self-taught, and everything else along the way has kind of spiraled out of control, but in a nice way, I suppose, to where we've got to now with the band and other bits and pieces, really.
I've not thought about Papa Roach for years.
Oh, they're killing it at the minute. They're fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic.
The new stuff's fantastic.
I kind of bypassed them, but one of my best mates from high school was big into Papa Roach, and I just haven't thought about them since then.
What's a spin?
Definitely.
I might have to check them out, because I remember hating them, but then at the time I was solidly into like Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, and Lizzy, and I wasn't going heavier at the time.
Nice.
So maybe I need to check them out again.
No, the last few albums have actually been really good.
So anyway, how did the band get together in the first place? How did you kind of find each other and get going?
This is all my fault. Oh, 2019, I put an advert on Join My Band after, I don't know, a few failed or different attempts at bands. And I attracted a one, Mr. Shammer, our drummer. We obviously met up at Rocket Park Studios, RIP. That was one of the best rehearsal spaces we ever had in Peterborough, but unfortunately, COVID. But yeah, so me and Shammer met up, started jamming. Went through obviously a few iterations of members. And then I think I found Jared on Instagram at one point, and we were chatting about his solo stuff. I think out of the blue, I was just like, "Do you want to sing in a band?" And I think that was probably what 20. Ooh, was that 2021, 22?
I think it was just as we came out of COVID, and I
It
think
was just after COVID, so it was probably 22. So then I think we had a rush job and tried to record 2 singles in 2 days in your bedroom, which was the most chaotic 2 days of our lives. Put them out. We really enjoyed it. And then I think later on we then sort of went for a bit of a direction change, wrote Paper Houses like the whole EP. And then it kind of just stemmed from there, really. Me and Jared have been kind of writing together ever since and just keep pushing ourselves to weird, wonderful and new sort of styles.
I'm surprised to hear that things like Join My Band actually work.
It's scary, isn't it? But yeah, I met Shammer and he's still with us, so good on him.
just
So what was your first gig like as a band? How was it? Was it positive, negative? How did it go?
It was a weird experience. So the first one we did as Keep This Up, obviously it was myself playing guitar and singing. I was the lead vocalist at the time. And it was literally a week or two just after COVID. So it was
Okay.
It was a really weird. So it was at our local venue called the Met Lounge, but it was a seated gig at 60 capacity. So people were all sat like 2 meters apart at tables, desks, or what have you. So it was like a post-COVID gig. So it was a really surreal experience playing to everyone sat down but so far apart. It was a surreal experience. But then obviously fast forward, I think, when was our first gig with yourself?
it'd been Rawns.
It was Rawns, wasn't it?
I think it fell at a really weird timing that I think we'd got a radio show either the day before or the day after. I think that was the Doc Mason show. I'd come down with some sort of viral infection and barely had a voice, which was fantastic and really what you want for the first gig as a vocalist. And the venue itself just felt like if you left your car there long enough, you'd have no tires. And it was, there was a fair amount of substances from other people that were frequenting the venue. It was a bit of a risk, to say the least.
Sounds very sketchy.
Honestly, I think I think we all bumped into the same guy, and his eyes must have been the same color as the record button. It was a bit worrying.
Wow. So how did you deal with your voice then? Were you just vocal zone or just desperately trying not to talk? Or what was the...
It was hammering vocal zones, picking my moments. And I think at that point, we weren't too heavy, which is great in one respect, but also bad in another, because you can't hide behind a scream if you can't get to a certain note or what have you. So it was like a wing and a prayer.
Just sing everything an octave down. You'd be...
Night. That was an eventful night.
I think we learned a lot. I think the band that we played with are a great group of lads, Dead Frequency, and bags of energy in. And I know for me and you, it was very much like, okay, well, there's the bar that we need to make sure we smash every time. And I think it's gone from that to how over the top can we make the performance now, energy wise. Does that mean launching off of X, Y, and Z? Does that mean, being in the crowd? Does that mean, what have you? And how far can you get away with it before you end up in a spot of bother?
Sounds fun. I mean, have you guys had any aside from that first one, have you had any nightmare experience gigs where it's all gone wrong, or has it all been...
Where do we start?
It's most gigs for you, Chris, isn't it?
I don't know why. I think I'm cursed, but for whatever reason, I seem to have no issues in rehearsals, and then as soon as I'm on a stage, I have technical difficulties. Don't know why. It's either my in-ears pack, my guitar, my wireless pack, my pedal board, my power supplies. Something is guaranteed to go wrong at a show for me, and I just cannot explain it because I can rehearse, sit in my office, everything, no issues. The second I go to a gig, stuff starts breaking. We went on tour, and I think I had like a different issue every night subsequently, and I just can't explain it. Absolute no explanation.
I think there's been, I don't know whether there'd be nightmare gigs, but I think we've had gigs where, I don't know, like you come away and you think, probably shouldn't have done that one. Probably shouldn't have done that one. I think, or that it's just taken so much from you. So I think, one of the ones that comes to mind was the Ostrich in 34-degree heat in a bar that's probably smaller than your bathroom. So that was pretty rough, just in terms of just getting through it and not passing out. I think we've been shafted a few times with pushbacks of doors and things like that, or not told that the opening band's on at 8. That's been a pain from time to time.
No, I'm sure. Was it Loughborough? We went to play a pub in Loughborough, and they'd set the time for us to play after the pub had closed, or around about. So by the time it got to us playing, they were like, "Yeah, just don't bother, go home."
What?
So we just loaded out. So we loaded in, loaded out, went home. So we just watched the first 3 bands play and then just went home.
What?
Yeah.
And what? So you were the headliners, I'm assuming. You last band on? Or?
Yeah, it was meant to be the last band on. But by the time we got on, there was no one left in the pub. So we went, all right, we're locking up. Everybody get out.
That's confusing.
So yeah, it was. We've had some experiences, safe to say.
So it's not that the timings of the day, like the evening, slipped or anything. It's just that
it got to a point where we were meant to play, and they just went, "How we want to lock up, so get out." We've had some experiences, haven't we?
Sounds that way. It sounds like wow. No, that's pretty rough. Maybe don't play there again. That would be my advice to you. I mean, not Loughborough necessarily, but just that specific.
I think we've learned a lot of lessons through gigging that places will definitely go back and work with again, and places that I think that will be the first and the last.
Yeah. I mean, I started to put together. I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but I'm going to. I started to put together a list of like venues and promoters where's good. Like, this is a good list, and I just didn't have time to finish it. And I was like, it'd be a really good resource. I need to do it. Now I've said it, I need to do something like that.
We have something similar that we use, a full database of venues, promoters, bands, everything, and it's an absolute godsend when you're trying to build shows, tours, and stuff like that.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard London is like so hard to get into. If you're not there, then it's really difficult to break into.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to do something about that. Well,
it's certainly difficult. I think, I think for us, we managed to find our way into London a fair amount, really, considering we're not London based. And we always seem, surprisingly for a non-London based band, we seem to do all right as it goes. And we've met some really great people in London that tend to have us back, which is like a bit of a godsend, really.
It's a strange city for gigging. And I chatted to a few people about it, and basically I've come to the conclusion that it's such a big city with so many things happening. Some nights at certain venues, some nights can be absolutely rammed, and other nights it can just be dead, and there's no seeming reason for it. And the only answer I have is that there's so much going on in London. There's so many things you could do that it's maybe not something that people do as much as they could. Anyway, that's it. That's a philosophical thought about London, which I didn't expect to do. So where and how do you guys rehearse? Do you kind of go to a studio and rent it out, or do you kind of have a specific space that you go to? How does that work for you?
So it's all in Shammer's garage attic thing. I don't know what you call it.
We rehearse in the loft.
In the loft of his garage. But I think because we run pretty light as it goes, everything's through an in-ear system. So that's one tick in the box. And then I say all of us, Chris and Andy both run Line 6 Helixes. So everything's kind of in the box. So, for whether it's gigs, whether it's practice, we travel pretty light, which is great. Obviously, you can't unless you replace the drummer with, Easy Drummer or something like that. We've always got that problem or logistical issue to resolve. But as it goes, means we can practice in quite small spaces without having to rent and haul loads of gear.
Yes, that's very good. And you're not making, well, I mean, you are with drums, but you're not making quite as much noise as you might.
Yeah.
Nice. Because, I mean, it's becoming more and more common, isn't it, for bands to go just digital, especially for live. And I completely get it. It's solid and usually reliable.
It's made our life so much easier. We used to run cabs and stuff like that. I fell down a flight of stairs with a 4x12. Not fun. Don't recommend. And then subsequently, Shammer then built the most incredible IEM rack that is smaller, lighter, and just easier all round for us to travel to shows with.
I think it's kind of handy as well is that, especially with things like, the Helixes, the Quad Cortex, the Axe Effects, whatever you decide to use in that realm is you've then got your tone already for live or for the studio, whether it's ambient tones, whether it's whatever you're running, that, okay, that's my sound and I can take that with me wherever I go. You don't need to go into, whether you pay 400, 500, 600 quid a go for tracking guitars at a studio, whatever that cost is. You haven't got to think, oh Christ, do you know what? I haven't got X amount of pounds for X brand of cab and what have you. So I think it's hugely beneficial for bands these days. I think you do see quite a lot as you say, a lot of bands doing it for both live and recording as well.
I mean, do you guys use backing tracks as well? Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So you kind of got that all kind of programmed and set in.
Yeah, so I think so for our ears, we've got the backing track there, so it kind of splits. So we have kind of ambient leads or synths or strings or what have you, all that kind of stuff on there. And that will run to, I think it splits the signal. So we have a click track on one side, our tracks in the other, and then out the front of house, it's pure mono signal out front. So it's great. We can kind of chop and change where we need to and what have you. And just everything's just so much tighter. You're forced to be tight. So it's great.
Have you gone whole hog and are you controlling the line 6s by MIDI as well? That's the next level, that is.
Not yet. I think there's bands that do it, and there's bands that do it very well. I know Spirit Box are one, and the not just the patch changes, but like tuning changes, the whole 9 yards. Is very impressive until something goes down.
Yes, that's very true. That is very true. I mean, I don't know. There must be a way to like run a MIDI cable to the. I mean, I'm assuming it's floor units they're using. Run a MIDI cable to the floor unit, but be able to have control of the floor unit separately as like a backup option. Like if the patch doesn't change, just get your foot involved.
You would think so. I suppose it depends on how you run live, because I know a lot of bands they'll run, won't they, using like a Mac or something like that. I know for us it's lesser fancy than not quite as fancy as that, and it's more of just a sound on a phone. It works and without minimal messing around. But then I suppose you're then at the risk. I think, was it Falling in Reverse? They got a load of stick a few years back because they had a laptop stolen. That was it. They had to pull the whole show. So it's
just have a backup option. That's always the way.
Yes.
I mean, most bands I chat to actually on this podcast just happen to not use backing tracks at all, and they just kind of, I'm going to say like play organically, but I know obviously with your kind of music that doesn't work. It does work, but it's not quite what people do in that genre. So my worry about doing that kind of thing, I guess, is if it all just doesn't work, if like the system collapses, if your laptop or your phone crashes. I'm going to ask the question, what do you do?
I think we know the songs well enough to be able to kind of pull it off. So, we've had it where, there's been a boatload of interference coming over the in-ears, so you can't actually hear the track. So that's quite easy. You just whip your in-ears out, and you just use in front of house, kind of the wedges out front. But I think, I think we'd just raw dog it, for lack of a better expression.
Yeah, pretty much.
And you have to make do. When there's a will, there's a way, and we've found ourselves in that position quite a few times. We've had a few members change over the years, so we've had to find different ways. So for a while we ran with the bass on the backing track, and we didn't have a bassist, and for a while we were a member down, so I ended up hopping on guitar and vocals, which was not ideal, but we get through it. And I think that's always been kind of our thing, is that regardless of what we do, we pulling out the shows the last resort. I think there was one at Stamford where I'd had minor surgery, still had stitches in. It was like, okay, well, we can't perform full tilt, so we'll do an acoustic set and we'll open instead of headlining. So we, when there's always more, there's a way.
I mean, it's good that you can run without the backing tracks if you need to, because I think it's always one of those things, isn't it, where when you get kind of more technical music, if it's for whatever reason just not possible to run, then you're like, that's very dependent on a single point of failure, I guess. Single point of weakness, that's the right phrase.
I'd probably say there's certain tracks that we wouldn't run without a backing track because of that complexity to the track. So there's one that is coming out called Remedy. I'm quite happy to say it. Chris, you can shoot me afterwards.
That's right.
That's coming out later this year. It's probably the most technical song we've got. There's just so many different moving parts within it. And I think if we didn't have the backing track, not only to have it so we're all in time, but also as a point of, Christ, if you lose it, there's the click, you're back in. I think it would be an absolute nightmare.
I mean, I guess the solution would be that you just don't play that song if everything goes down.
Yes.
Just miss that one off the set this time. Or have fun, see what happens.
I think that'd be more fun with the one that we've just written at the weekend that's in 3/4. I think without a click, that would just be, just changes between, what was it, 3/4, 5/4 and 4/4.
Oh, right, okay, ouch.
Not the worst, but...
So talking of that, how do you guys write songs as a band? Does someone kind of come with essentially like a complete song and go, here we are, or do you jam it together? How does that kind of thing work?
That's more me, isn't it? It's more me. I tend to kind of go, right, here's the finished article. I think there's certain songs where Chris and I will probably sit down together more musically and finish things off, or, especially as we come to track and record, it's more of, okay, well, what's the ear candy? What's the extra little melodies that we want here and there? But by and large, instrumentally, it's usually me hashing it out at home and going, right, here's another one. What do you reckon? Do you like it? Do you not like it? In the bin or keep it? And then it's both of us, isn't it?
Normally, as me and you just sit and write lyrics, get a somewhat plan together for the track, and then, it kind of then goes onto the pile of, do we want to record this? Do we not? And it worked quite nicely for the 3 that we've got coming out later this year. And it worked quite nicely because we managed to finish them together and then be like, I think these are the 3 that we should produce next. And I think we're already starting to get that pile, aren't we, back up again, ready for the next lot.
I mean, that's a good way to go about it, I think, because you generally, in my experience, you want more songs than you're necessarily thinking of putting out, because then you have that choice and you can go, oh, this one's not quite the quality we want, let's not do that. And then
absolutely. And I think that was something that we very much had when we did the Paper Houses EP. And I suppose in a different sense, not only we need a few extra than what we actually need, but it was very much, okay, this is kind of the line in the sand for us as a band, is like we've got it's like 12, 14 tracks for a 6-track EP. And it was like, okay, well, we can either go this way, which is more pop punk and stick with what we were doing and that sort of realm, which was fine. Or we can go this way and go more post-hardcore, more emo, and that's the route. And whichever way we go, that's the line in the sand. That's the way we go. Because I think we'd got John at the time, who was lead guitarist, and we were new, so we hadn't really had anything out with us. So it was like a benefit that we had both of those kind of options for us, really.
So what made you pick the heavier route? Is it just that you preferred it, like literally that simple as that, or?
I don't know, because I think it was a bit split. I think for me coming in, I wouldn't class myself as a pop punk vocalist. I think I said that to yourself at the time, Chris. I'm not that guy. But I know you're very much pop punk.
I'm very pop punk through and through, but I think when I approached Jared about the sort of role in the band, and I think actually to quote how I approached it with, I think I said it would be like A Day to Remember, Sum 41, like the heavier side of pop punk, where it, has a little bit more edge, a bit more breakdown, a bit more, a bit more technicality to it. And we thought obviously would go, a little bit sort of heavier pop punk. And then I think by the time Jared had written like some ideas for Paper Houses EP, we sort of took a look at them and actually went, no, that's it. Like Fire Bottle, for example. I remember Fire Bottle and Find Myself. Even Bury Me, actually, when Bury Me came along, and it was just like, that's the sound, like that. Really enjoyed it.
So then here you are.
Here we are.
I mean, did you find it challenging, kind of, I guess, I don't know what to call it, like shifting genre gears, I'm going to put it that way, in terms of finding gigs? Because I can well imagine that you were quite tuned into the more pop punk side of things when it comes to bands you want to work with and promoters and things like that, and then you're shifting to a different kind of thing. How difficult was that for you?
Yes and no. It does kind of obviously limit, certain venues and things you can play, because certain people only want lighter bands, indie bands, pop punk, like gentle sing-alongs. So it did limit us in that respect. But I think with how we'd sort of discussed it at the time and how we wanted to move forwards in terms of where we play, who we play with, it kind of gave us like a nice sort of kick to almost not start again, but be like, right, where are good venues? Where are good bands? Like, you almost kind of like pick yourself back up again and just kind of think, let's build this up from scratch again, but the right way. So we obviously played some great gigs doing the pop punk stuff, but it was another challenge to be like, how heavy do we want to play with? Like, are we talking like deathcore bands? Are we talking just, metalcore, that sort of thing? And I think it pushed us a little bit out of our comfort zone, which was really nice, and started finding, new bands, new friends, new towns. I think that genre change actually pushed us out of our comfort zone quite a lot, which in hindsight was probably the best thing I think we could have done.
Yeah, I think so. I think there were definitely challenges along. I think one of the challenges I found for us, and I think you and I discussed it quite a lot at the time, Chris, was that until you've got enough out there, we had this kind of weird period where half of the set was pop punk, half of the set was this kind of heavier blend of emo. And it was like, this doesn't really work together, but we'll make a go of it for now and phase stuff out slowly. But I think even then, it's I think the issue that we had then is similar to the issue to a point that we've got now, and that by and large, wherever we play, we're either the lightest band on the set or we're the heaviest band on the set, and there is very rarely an in between.
So I guess how you approach those different kinds of gigs might be a little bit, if you're the heaviest band to being the lightest band, I don't know, is there a difference of approach? Or
I would have said probably a year ago, I'd have said we'd approached it differently. I think we're probably more conscious of like, oh, we've got to make the screams in this more, or we've got to dial this down because we were two pop punk bands and we need to tune in lighter. And I think over the course of the last 12 months, I think we've actually got to a point where we've gone, do you know what? We kind of are what we are. And the reason why we like what we like is because we can play with both those sides of bands. And I think the tour that we did earlier this year kind of reinvigorated that and about what we are as a band and what we want to present live. And regardless of who we play with, it's, you watch the band and you think, blimey hell, I'm tired just watching it. And it doesn't matter who we play with. We're there to make a point and make it difficult to follow us from an energy level, and that's that really. It's I would say it's as simple as that, Chris.
Yeah, yeah. It's always been nice to sort of just go out there, play the songs that we've written, we're proud of, we enjoy, put everything into it, and just walk away thinking that we've just put on the best show that we possibly can for everyone, and hopefully that leaves an impression.
People either like you or they won't like you, and that is what it is. That's fair enough. So a bit of a kind of gear shift of a question here, just to warn you. When it comes to recording, what's your approach to it? Do you go to the studio? Do you record yourselves? How do you kind of meet that kind of side of things?
It's been a journey. I think we're still in that journey. I think typically we try and keep as much in-house as possible, and some of that's down to cost. Obviously, it is incredibly expensive to go into the studio, even if it's just for one track. But I think the other side is that we've got the capability to be able to do it. I think we're in an age where most people, without realizing, do have that capability to be able to, record in a bedroom and get, if you track it right and, you take the time to get the takes right and everything else, that you can get pro level mixes and pro level quality at home, essentially. So I think, for us, a lot of the recording is done from my front room, whether that's guitars, vocals, what have you. I think the last two singles have been, the drums were tracked in my front room as well. So the whole shebang's been done there. I think this time round for the next batch of tracks is the first where we've outsourced the mixing in a while, at least since I've been in the band. I think the EP and the singles have been mixed by me, mastered by either me or another member of the band at the time. And I think it's been because we could. I think we had the time where we could. But I think we've kind of reached a point where time is finite.
Yeah, that's when you have to start making decisions about what you do and don't do, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's very common nowadays to certainly track at least some of your music at home. And that's certainly not something to be, I don't know, I'm going to say ashamed of, but that's not like the right word, but it's not something to be embarrassed about, let me put it that way, because basically everyone does, unless you are really doing very, very well and you maybe have a label backing you. It's very likely you're doing at least some of it at home, and it sounds great,
I should imagine you find that, don't you, surely, with a lot of the bands that you kind of mix and work with. There's a lot of it that's either done in the box or, that side of things.
Yeah, exactly. And it's about knowing, I guess for me as a mixer, it's about knowing how to treat each track, because sometimes stuff is recorded phenomenally well and it's wonderful and it's a dream to work on and it's straightforward, and then I can make some more creative decisions with it. And sometimes it's about I'm going to use the words damage limitation, and it's like, right, this wasn't done in the best way, how can we make the most of this track? And I mean, personally, my approach is, as long as in those situations, as long as the music leaves me better than it arrived, then I've won. I've done my job. But most of the time with pretty much most bands that I work with, it's very well recorded, and that's when it's done at studio or at home, it's done well. So that's always lovely stuff. I haven't got a nice segue onto my next question. So you're seeing the behind the scenes of this. So how is the band managed? Is there like a single point person who's in charge? Do you share out tasks? How does that work?
My time to shine. So this is where I step in. So I guess I can argue the point that I'm the band manager at this point.
You're the boss.
I am the big boss. So I handle a lot of the. So I run all the social media accounts. I do like the gig booking, finances, stuff like that. So I kind of do all the business side of the band as such. So I sort of look after the majority of that. Obviously, there are some aspects with like shows and stuff like that I do obviously try and dish out amongst obviously some of the members to coordinate, to expect a whole 9 yards. But for the most part, on the day-to-day business side, that normally is myself.
Jared,
I'm the assistant to the assistant
You're
manager.
the assistant. Oh, wait, I see. But I mean, if from what I've seen on the outside, recording is your
Yeah, I think Chris tends to take more, as he says, more of the socials, more of the smoozing is probably more Chris.
Yeah, I'm more the social butterfly. I like to talk to people, venues, bands, and I kind of want to just put a little segue in here. So I started my own promotions company last year called Brainache Promotions. So just shouting out my own company here because I can. But obviously we try and obviously expand, look for bands, help do gig booking, shows, tours, the whole 9 yards. And that's been a very powerful tool for me to meet new people, put on opportunities for loads of new bands that we then subsequently have then worked with or found venues from. And obviously it's been really nice to actually use that in a way to expand obviously what we do with Keep This Up as well.
I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes to...
Thank you.
Go and look. I'm pointing downwards now. Go and look down there, and I'm sure you will find it. Cool. So you're the kind of the boss man when it comes to the band. Fair. Because I mean, it's very interesting how so many bands do it in different ways. Like, it's usually like that there is either one person who is quote unquote in charge, or there isn't anybody in charge and everybody just does a little bit. And I always find it fascinating to work out how different bands work.
Yeah, I think it's just I sort of started the band way back when, and I don't know, it just kind of didn't stop. Yeah, I think the train's going too fast at this point for me to kind of jump off. So it just sort of, I kind of took the wheel and just ran with it. So it was just something that I actually quite rather enjoyed, became comfortable with, and was, I don't know, just the more I studied it, the more I kind of looked into it and was like, oh, I could do this, this, and this. It just became it became, again, something for me to set a bar and obviously try and reach it and then keep pushing and go, we've done this, but now can we do this? And just keep pushing myself to try and find as bigger shows, better shows, stuff like that. And yeah, I think I quite thrive in a business environment or like a social environment.
It sounds like you are the ideal person to have in a band, because so many band members just hate that kind of thing. It's like, oh, booking gigs, finding the rub, that's faff. But hey, if you got someone like yourself in the band, that's a big win. Can't argue with that.
Try my best.
So, what do you think, and you can have different answers to this, what's been the biggest success of the band so far? It could be a particular gig, it could be a particular release, whatever it may be. It's completely up to you.
Ooh. I think As Above for me, because I love that track to bits. It got into the Kerrang charts. It was our first song to ever hit the Kerrang charts. It was our first song to get onto BBC Radio 1. It just kind of, I think that was a shift for us when sort of we got a bit of traction with that song. And I think that's when we all sort of were in disbelief and were like, we're good at this. So like it again, that was one of the moments where it was like, it was a real, I think for me, that was a really cool moment to kind of just say that happened, considering obviously growing up watching Kerrang and stuff like that. I don't know. How about you, Jared?
Yeah, I'd definitely say that's probably one of the moments that's up there. I think for me, I suppose it's probably not the moment, but I think for that one in particular is because that track had been sat gathering dust for about 5 years before joining the band. So for me, it was like, why of all tracks is this the one that's decided to do something? So I think that, but again, growing up listening to Kerrang, watching Kerrang, etc., is huge. It's huge. So I think there's that. I think there's like a handful of different moments at different gigs where you just think, Jesus Christ, this is actually happening. Something like different things that you map out in your head and you think, oh yeah, this would be so cool and people would do this. And every show you go to, it's like, oh yeah, no one's doing it. And I think there's like a few moments where you've asked the crowd to do something, or you've planned for a certain part to sound a certain way live, and it's just hit every box. And I think the Fighting Cocks in London, getting people on shoulders, having a wall of death during Hollaback Girl is probably up there.
Hang on. I go to the Fighting Cocks quite a lot because that's kind of quite close to me. So I do need to see you play there sometime. But That venue's great, but tiny. How did you get a wall of death in there?
With great difficulty.
It's just, I don't know. It was just one of those shows where I think we were looking forward to it, and it sold quite well. I think it sold a lot better by the time we got on than we were expecting it to have sold, considering 3 of the 4 bands were out of towners, and I think the headliner was very last minute. I think from what I can remember. So I think we got 2 songs in, a couple of songs in. It was like, Christ, they're really up for this. And it was one of those nights where you just couldn't do wrong. It just seemed whatever you did, the crowd were up for it. And Hollaback Girl is what we finish on. So it was just like, right, it's now or never. Let's give it a go. And since then, it's just escalated, and it's just gone nuts, really.
I think the first time we started a Banana Pit, I think that was another moment for me. I think that was a great one at Met Lounge.
Yeah.
Really happening now. That's cool. Wow. So, I mean, what goals do you have for the band for the next 6 months to a year or so? Can be as specific or as vague as you like.
Is Wembley too big a sort of ask?
Can get there in a year, then yeah.
I think it's, you know, obviously, I think for me, it's, you know, you can set the goals of, you know, Wembley, I want to be at Wembley, or I want to be at X venue, or I want to be here in the charts, or I want to, you know, and I'm sure for most bands that time comes, but I think whilst we're the size that we are, that probably isn't coming anytime soon, in the nicest respect to any of us in the band. But I think for me, it's, you know, it comes down to creating an art form that is honest and true to us as a band and as individuals, that we can look back on in 20 years, regardless of where anything goes, and go, do you know what? That was actually a pretty sick time of my life. You know, I've seen X, Y, and Z around the country. I've played this, and this. I've got a handful of songs that I can look back on when my bones don't work anymore. And do you know what? I'm still really proud of all of those, and it reminds me of something that I wouldn't have traded in for the world. I think that's for me, and I think, you know, whether it's the next 12 months, the next 12 years, that's kind of the goal, I think, for me at least.
Yeah. I think for me is, again, just, yeah, I joke about Wembley, but I think for me it's just play some good shows with friends along the way, really. I quite enjoy the absolute crazy sort of adventures we take around the country doing weird and wonderful stuff. I just think that's kind of that's half of the actual goal for me, is just actually spending time with my friends and just, you know, and just kind of traveling around, really, and just playing again songs that we're proud of.
I think there's so many bands who their goal is, you know, whatever it may be, it's getting signed. I mean, that's less common nowadays, but let's just say it's that. And you can spend so much time pushing towards that goal because it's your goal, that you kind of look back and you go, did I actually enjoy that? And then you can go, actually, I'm not sure I did. And I think you've got absolutely the right attitude, that you've got to make sure that whatever you're doing, you're enjoying it whilst you're doing it. And obviously there's going to be rubbish bits throughout, but, you know, as long as you're broadly speaking enjoying what you're doing, then that's the big win. And so, you know, as you say, in like years to come, you can look back at it, whether it was quote unquote successful or not, you can go, actually, that was really fun and I did it, you know, whatever that may be. So that's I think that's really good.
I think, you know, as you say, I think that whole piece of being signed or making it to Wembley or whatever that is especially these days, you know, with the amount of musicians, bands that are out there, it's going to, you know, by and large, it's about as common as rolling 7 on a 6-sided dice. So, you know, I think we've been in that position where you get to that point, you think, why am I doing this? We've actually lost sight of why we got into this in the first place. And it's so easily done. You know, we're in a world now where you're wrapped up in social media, and it's seemingly every band for themselves. And you're so wrapped up in your own bubbles of trying to make it and trying to do this and this and this, and you're just consumed by it all, and you just lose sight of what it's meant to be about. So
this is my penultimate question for you. What is your best piece of advice for bands nowadays? That's deliberately a very wide open question.
I think if when I talk to new bands now, or try and help bands, I think the first bit of advice I offer more than anything is network. Just talk to people. Doesn't hurt. Like, you go watch a band, go see your local bands, go talk to them. Just ask if they need a support band. Ask local venues. Just don't be afraid to talk to people, because what have you got to lose? Like, worst case, people say no, but if you don't ask, you don't get. So all I say to people is just network. Don't, and that's where I've got to where I've got, because I just have a tendency just to talk to people, whether they like me or not. Don't mind, but I think honestly, just talk to people. That is the only way you're ever gonna grow.
I think probably adding on to that, when it comes to the writing side, is be unapologetically you. Whether that, the reality is the world doesn't need another Sleep Token. They don't need another Metallica. They've got those. And if people want to listen to those, let's be honest, we're going to go and listen to Sleep Token, not another band coming up that's trying to imitate Sleep Token or these other bands. And, you can take inspiration from these guys for sure. But, where's X person in this? Where's you? Where's your sound within this? And I think that authenticity is, personally, I would say something that is somewhat dying within the music scene as a whole, especially when it comes to the product itself. So I think, that'd be my 2 pence worth. Yeah.
That's the only way you're going to do something unique, really.
Yeah.
So to close out the podcast, I'd like to ask for your favourite song from the band, which has been released, obviously, to play at the end of the podcast. So which song is it and why? And I'm afraid you'll have to agree on one song. So good luck.
Ooh. Oh, this could be a moment, isn't it? I would argue Blossom myself, only because I spin that track a lot. What would you have gone with?
I was also going to say Blossom, but I think my reasoning for that is probably that was the track where I think for us, that's the point where we hit that, okay, we're going to be authentically us, and that's going to be, we're not necessarily going to be this and we're not going to be that, but this is going to be us. And that was the first track where I really felt like we all were on that page.
Fair. Glad we're in agreement. That always makes it easy. So this is Keep This Up with Blossom. Guys, thanks for talking.
Cheers.